Hi everyone, it's Alicia, and first of all, I'm going to apologize in advance if you get a little bit of shaky cam with this. My tripod is broken and I need to go get a new one, but life has just been crazy right now, and so I haven't had time to go out and buy one, so I'm holding my iPhone right now. I've got it resting on top of my computer monitor though to hopefully keep it a little bit more stable, but yeah, if the camera shakes or wiggles a little bit, apologies. I'm trying to keep it as still as I can. But anyway, all that aside, I had a fantastic evening last night. I went and saw Wendy Rule in concert, and oh my god, it was absolutely amazing. She did it at a bookstore that I've been to a few times, and more on that place specifically later. But oh my god, she's one of those people who she doesn't need any fancy lighting or stage effects or even a microphone. It's just her and her husband with his guitar and just both their instruments together and her voice, and it's absolutely spectacular. She's one of those rare artists nowadays who sounds even better live than she does on her CDs. So if you have a chance to see her live, take it. And that's why I took it. I went by myself, and I usually don't like to go to concerts by myself because there's lots of people around, and if there's merchandise for sale, I move a little bit more slowly with looking at things, and I might even need someone to tell me what exactly is there laid out for sale. So I usually don't like to go to events like that by myself, but since Wendy is from Australia, I thought, when am I ever going to get a chance to see her again? When will she be halfway across the world again? And so I was not going to miss this, and I went, and it was absolutely spectacular. And she began the show by casting a circle. And for those who don't know, casting a circle is the traditional way that pagans and Wiccans start sacred ceremony. The idea is that since all of the earth is sacred and the elements are sacred and they're always with us, that we can set up sacred space wherever we want to simply by inviting in the elements and the directions and things and the things that they stand for to be present with us. And so you can basically set up sacred space anywhere, in your room, in a park, in a bookstore, wherever. And that's how Wendy started her show, and I absolutely loved that. I thought it was just a wonderful way to set the mood and to acknowledge that artistic gifts come from the elements and the ancestors and spirits and deities and work through us, that it's not just a sense of the artist being talented in and of themselves, that talent comes from greater places and greater spirits. And so the fact that she started her show with casting a circle, I loved it. And as for her songs that she performed, she did a few that I recognized. I have some of her songs that are my favorites of hers, and I listen to them on repeat. So I am not familiar with all of her catalog, but oh my god, I honestly think it was better that a lot of her songs, I heard them for the first time live being sung by, again, just her voice and a guitar, and a voice that was, it could fill up an opera house with no need for a microphone. It was that powerful and had that just weight and emotion and that technical skill, and just I could go on and on for hours about how amazing she was. She started the show with performing her song Horses, which I had heard before, but I hadn't realized that it was about seahorses because the song mentions water and the ocean, but it didn't click for me until last night when she said it's about the horses of the ocean, and I was like, oh, of course, seahorses, because when I first listened to it, I was like, it seems sort of strange that it's a song titled Horses, and yet it's not about, pastures and fields where horses are. My brain didn't make the connection of water, ocean, seahorses, horses of the sea. That was lovely. And then she performed the song that immediately struck my heart. It was called World Between Worlds. She described it as being inspired by a Celtic legend with one of the Celtic heroes who falls in love with a fairy woman, and their love is forbidden, and so they can only meet in the world between worlds, world between our world and fairyland. And it, oh god, hearing that live was just brilliant. And since we were in a circle in sacred space, it just felt right for that song to be sung in that place. And it reminded me of the characters in my book that I'm working on. And so to suddenly feel their presence in the circle too it was magnificent. And then, oh my god, then we got to the majority of her performance was performing music from her new album, which is called Persephone, which is basically, it's a concept album that tells the story of the cycle of the story of Persephone, from being an innocent maiden in the golden fields with her mom Demeter, picking flowers and just being a sweet innocent girl, and then being abducted by Hades into the underworld, and then really coming into her own as the goddess of the underworld and taking on that role of being the queen who welcomes souls into the afterlife. Wendy described Persephone as being the midwife to death, helping souls transition into the cauldron of rebirth, basically, and that sense of you're leaving the world that you were born into, and now you're entering into the one that you came from, because you came from the abyss of the shadow world, and you come into this world to rest, to meditate on past lives, to be reborn, to encourage life above the surface world in the soil to grow. And oh, it was just wonderful. It was just the cycle of death and rebirth, and that one leads into the other, and that they feed into each other, and that you can't have one without the other, and that death isn't a thing to be afraid of. It's just a resting point. It's there to balance the light and life and the grain, and to help the grain grow, and to help people in this world be anchored, our roots into the ground, into life, that it's just another part of life, even though it's that great mystery of life that nobody can really comment on fully, because no one really knows what it's like until we experience it. It was just so profound, and her voice was just so rich and strong. And as I just sat and just let the music wash over me, my theater brain started going. And because Wendy said, she mentioned that she would love to do this, the whole album, as a piece of ritual theater, a stripped down piece of ritual theater. And oh, I would love to be a part of that. Just any artists out there, you know what I'm talking about, when you go see another artist and you just feel a connection with their work, and you feel that you're a kindred spirit with them, and it just inspires you for your own creativity. And it's just wonderful to just sit and receive that energy, and to give your own energy. And oh, it's just wonderful. It's now on my bucket list to work with Wendy someday, whether to be inspired by her own work or to offer my own work as inspiration someday. I mean, I know I'm just little old me working on my own work, but oh, it would be, and I'm sure she gets requests for that all the time, but oh, it would just be wonderful. It just a kindred soul in arts and theater and music. I love it. And so if you're a musical theater fan, if you're a fan of the myth of Persephone, go check out her album Persephone. It's absolutely brilliant. And she didn't get a chance to perform all the songs from it because it's a double album, so a 24 track piece. So yeah, it basically is a musical on a CD that hasn't been staged yet. And oh, it's so great. It's so good. I could just gush for hours about it. I had a chance to say hi to Wendy after the show for a minute, and she was really nice. I feel kind of silly though looking back on it, because I was so starstruck when I met her. I just basically gushed like I did now. I was like, oh my gods, I listen to your work all the time while I'm working on my own work, and it helped me not just as a writer and as someone in theater, but it helped me find my witchy path, and I am just so happy I got to see you here tonight because I know you're from Australia, so I thought I would never get to see you live because I never thought you'd be here on our side of the world. And I just kind of rambled, and so even as I was talking, I'm like, Alicia, stop, slow down, you sound so silly. But she was really nice, and when I went to shake her hand, she took my one hand in both of hers, and she just seemed really, really sweet and really nice. And so, yes, Wendy was an absolute delight, just a wonderful soul. If you have a chance to see her live, take it. Don't miss out on it. My only issue with the evening was the venue. And I've been to this place before, and I've gotten this vibe from it other times too, so it wasn't just in the case of a bad experience last night. But the store that I went to, it was Tree of Life Metaphysical Books and Gifts in San Diego. And I get the vibe from them that they're just after your money, because I've been to several events before, and while the people who actually do the events are perfectly lovely, nice people who are just happening to rent out the space, the store owners seem a bit just not very nice, because after the events they always like sort of rush out the people. Even if the event ends relatively early in the evening, it's like that sense of, okay, event's done, we've gotten your money, now get out. Like, don't linger. If you're not going to buy anything else, don't linger. And that's the other thing, is that there's a sense of afterwards, like, okay, you can stay, but you have to buy stuff. And that's not good. And last night in particular, I stayed because Wendy and her husband who performed with her, they stayed and got burritos, and a couple other guests stayed as well to chat. Now, to be fair, I think that they were friends of hers, so they were catching up because they knew each other. But it wasn't made clear that it was like, okay, time for everyone else to leave now. I just thought, oh, they're forming kind of like a little powwow after show circle. Like, I thought that was the cue of like, yeah, stay and chat if you want. But it became clear that I wasn't welcome and I was supposed to leave. And again, this isn't a reflection on Wendy herself. Wendy seemed perfectly lovely, and she was just chilling after her show, eating a burrito. So this isn't a reflection on Wendy herself at all. She seemed perfectly lovely and gracious the whole time. I'm sure if I had sort of said, hi, can I say one more quick thing to you, she would have been perfectly nice. But yeah, the shop owner made it clear that I had overstayed my welcome, and I was supposed to leave. And it felt just didn't feel nice to, end what had been such a lovely evening, such an energy filled evening, such a positive night, where it's like, you're hyped up from music, from being in good witchy space, and then all of a sudden it's like, okay, go now. We just want your money. Just go. That it ended on a sour note, and I'm trying to not let it affect me, because otherwise it was a great night. And I even wrote an honest review on their Facebook page, and the owner answered. She was like, it was 10 at night, we were tired, we wanted to go home, including Wendy herself. And I was like, okay, I've done theater, I've been involved in theater for years, I get it. Sometimes after a show, when it's late at night, the exhaustion after a show, it hits you like a brick wall, you want to go home. I get it. That's not an excuse for being rude. And she said, oh, I'm sorry you had a bad experience. And I was like, oh, my experience with the concert was fine. The show was lovely. I was basically trying to say, my problem wasn't with Wendy or with the show, you were the problem. And I've gotten that vibe from them before when I've gone to the store before. So yeah, basically, Tree of Life Metaphysical Books and Gifts in San Diego, I don't recommend them. They're just after your money. They have a $5 limit amount on if you're using your debit or credit card. So yeah, And maybe that's a common thing that businesses do. They have a certain amount of money you have to spend if you're not using cash, but I don't know. To me, that seems like a sign they're just after your money. But overall, Wendy was an absolute delight. She seemed like a wonderfully lovely person. Her music is gorgeous. Her spirit and energy are just so giving and so lovely and wonderful. If you have a chance to see her live, I highly recommend it. And now, with that, I'm gonna go and work on my own work because I'm still hyped up from last night, and her energy was just wonderful. She seemed lovely. And I went on Facebook last night and friend requested her. I'm hoping she answers back. And I saw that she is also friends with Heather Dale, another favorite musician of mine, and Heather is also just a wonderfully genuine, sweet person. And so the minute I saw their friends, I'm like, oh, well, if Wendy's friends with Heather, then yeah, she's cool, because Heather's such a lovely, sweet soul. She would be friends with people who are genuine and witchy and just wonderful people. So if you have a chance to see Wendy live, take it. I've probably said that like 5 times in the last 3 minutes, but she's just an absolute delight. And with that, I'm gonna go work on my own work because she's just been a wonderful inspiration. And so with that, let me know if you've seen her live and what are your experiences. Thank you for watching, and Wendy, if you see this, just thank you for last night. It was lovely, and blessed be.